You know, when you were poor, but at least you came by it honestly. But now, screwing over the people who helped you? I don't know how you sleep at night.
Okay, you know what? Maybe Brian brings this kind of hatred onto himself. Maybe he deserves it. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy. Or more specifically, Brian and Quagmire. Two fellas I've talked a lot about on separate occasions, but never together, I don't think. Well, Kitty, you kind of did when you discussed Quagmire loving cats. That doesn't count, Catherine. Nobody watched that video, I don't think. I watched it. Shut up, Catherine. Now, a common addition, I guess, to the later seasons of Family Guy is Quagmire hating Brian for seemingly just existing. There was a whole episode where he described precisely why he did not like him, in visceral detail, because the writers were listening to fans and best to use him, the offender, as a mouthpiece. But because the reasons he gave were immensely hypocritical, many fans actually sided with Brian in this debacle. So what were the crew to do? Make it more one-sided, as in Quagmire has more of a point. However, then we got episodes like Brian the Closer, which arguably I will call one of the show's worst. Because after this, you cannot argue that Quagmire does not deserve to hate Brian after what happened here. So, let's discuss. But we'll get to Brian the Closer later. You guys know my system. I don't like to review episodes on their own. I mean, I would, but you guys don't, so I like to compromise by doing other episodes. A big mystery to fans is, why does Quagmire hate Brian? Well, one compelling theory I've heard is that Brian's a dog. That's what people say. No, he doesn't get Pugsley's song, and Quagmire loves cats. Perhaps he subconsciously hates Brian because he's a dog, which I could buy in a sense. I mean, as far as he knows, Brian did shave and kill James, and also had a gram of pot on him.
I killed your cat.
Well, clearly Peter was taking the blame for his frickin' dog, but I do think there is a small stake in this theory, which honestly kinda convinced me. The episode Forget Me Not, where Glenn is in a simulation with his memories wiped and treats Brian very subhuman, like not letting him sit on the couch or blowing a doggy whistle, whereas Peter has no problems with him and treats him like an equal. Hence why he and Peter are friends and would still be friends even if they weren't master and dog. Because it's discipline that begets love. But Jerome is the New Black is the first episode to establish their hatred of each other, which at first, I didn't even think he hated Brian as intently as he did later on. He just didn't care for Brian. Because honestly, you could just not really care for somebody. I mean, you don't viscerally hate them, but you'll be like, they're alright. To me, it was just a combo of Brian doing all of this crap to make Quagmire hate him that made him angry. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Brian finds out of the blue, that Quagmire hates him.
The whole Quagmire thing? What Quagmire thing? Oh, just that he hates you.
Quagmire hates me?
Hates you.
I don't get it. Why wouldn't Quagmire like me?
Because he thinks you're annoying.
Which, I hate to say, doesn't really make sense considering how Brian and Quagmire got along earlier in the show, but okay, I guess. Then again, I hate to say it, it's very possible to hate somebody but be perfectly polite to them. Maybe you're trying to be the bigger person, maybe it's too petty to matter, etc. I could totally see Quagmire always hating Brian, but since he lives next door, and he's also Peter's dog, just ignoring it. Plus, when Quagmire does give the reasons he names later on for hating on Brian, well, most of the reasons he hates him come from the later seasons, so maybe that just developed over time. But Brian does try to make nice with Glenn to befriend him, and his efforts all fail. Which admittedly, the first time, I don't think it's his fault since he didn't know any of that crap.
And from the looks of it, she likes it rough.
That's my sister, Brian. Her boyfriend has been beating her mercilessly. The last thing she'd want right now is to be objectified.
And as will be common later, Glenn is totally willing to let his sister get beaten just to prove a point to Brian.
Ow! Ow! You feel good? He's savagely beating her again. You hear that?
Yeah, I'm not deaf.
Oh, what, like my brother? Boy, you have no class!
Yeah, not the best look. Honestly, I do wish I could review this episode, but I already did, so go check that out, so okay. But wait, Quagmire has a deaf brother? Why haven't we seen him ever? But at the same time, I think Brian should just accept the fact that Glenn does not like him. Because, I don't know, but he does it, and that makes everything worse. Christ on a stick, I hate these types of episodes. This one person doesn't like you, for maybe, no reason at all. Which, yeah, this segment might not be any reason, but come on, you hate people for no reason. Be perfectly honest. So the characters end up jumping over hoops to try and please them, potentially even ruining their lives in the process. Frasier had a horrible episode where this happened. Seriously, Frasier? Because, while it sucks, I do think a fundamental lesson you need to learn, and I learned on the internet, is not not everybody is going to like you, and sometimes it will be for the most pettiest and stupidest of reasons, and this goes both ways. Again, do you like everyone? Be perfectly honest. No? Then accept it. But Brian wants Glenn to like him, even though, like, dude, just keep your distance. And he knows he won't go out to dinner with him because he wants to treat Quagmire to a nice steak, so he lies and says he's Cheryl Teagues.
Ever since she left, I've been chasing girls to fill the hole she made when she walked out.
Well, I bet a thick, juicy steak could help fill that hole, huh?
Okay, I was a little patient with him and Brenda, but in this instance, you can't say Brian didn't know, which, yeah, he probably didn't know the extent, but he knew he dated Cheryl Teagues. I feel like maybe he probably should have asked Peter or Joe for some feedback. Like, how did he find out, I wonder? At the restaurant, things are curt and quiet, and Brian finally asks Glenn why he doesn't like him. And Glenn has the receipts, which I will tear to shreds, because I'd like to be fair, unfortunately.
You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him?
Well, to be fair, Glenn, Brian knew that was an issue, and that's why he was in therapy. I mean, at first he was in therapy to find out why he kept having accidents, but when he learned it was because he subconsciously had a crush on Lois, he tried to get to the bottom of why. Plus, he and Lois explained their feelings for each other, made up several times about it, play it again Brian notwithstanding, and even at the end of that episode they still did. And the one time Brian got to be with Lois, it was only because he had to, since as far as she knew, Peter was dead and she needed somebody to take care of her and the kids. What's your excuse? You try to sleep with Lois while her husband had amnesia. You constantly try to sleep with Lois whenever you think there's a chance. Arguably, you're way worse.
And to add insult to injury, you defecate all over his yard.
You mean besides the fact he's a dog and dogs naturally do that? I mean, at least he's not doing it on your lawn, but maybe he should start. Sorry, Glenn, I didn't mean to. You know what I mean.
I don't buy them a copy of Catcher in the Rye and then lecture them with some 7th grade interpretation of how Holden Caulfield is some profound intellectual. He was a spoiled brat. God, you're pretentious.
Yeah, Glenn, that's the point of the novel. Teens are evil, therefore that dude was evil. Really, when you were a teen, how insufferable were you? Albeit, I read that book when I was a teen, and I hated it until an English teacher told me that was the whole point. Now I still hate it, but less so.
Well, who the hell are you to talk down to anyone? You failed college twice, which isn't nearly as bad as your failure as a father. How's that son of yours you never see?
Okay, Glenn, I was with you for much of the speech, but you lost me here. Like, you really lost me here. And I hate how much the show keeps pushing this. Brian did not know about Dylan until Dylan was almost a grown adult. And when they met, both people did not want anything to do with each other. Mutual hatred. Sorry, I hate when dads abandon their kids, but you can't really abandon something you didn't know existed. I mean, if he found out about Dylan, and then Dylan was like, Daddy, and he was like, get away from me, that would be a different story, but no, that's not what happened. Plus, that episode ended with them departing amicably. It was the Griffins who insisted Dylan had to go because Brian kept acting like a D-word. I feel like just argue up until Brian's a bad father, they just talked off screen, because it would still be in character for Brian at that point to try to connect with the only flesh and blood he has on this planet. Albeit, yeah, I think this was the episode to quote-unquote establish Brian apparently abandoned Dylan, like he put him on somebody's doorstep or in a dumpster, when that wasn't what happened. Look, I'm all for Brian hate, but I want the hate to be factual. Plus, while two wrongs don't make a right, well, I'd argue you're way worse in this regard, since Brian only has the one kid. You have dozens of kids you never spend time with, ever. From infants to adults, you almost slept with your 18-year-old daughter, and when you find out about the kids, you just discard them like trash. The only time you didn't, besides that one daughter, who I really need to get to in a video, was Anna Lee, because you realized you could never take care of her, but you still abandoned her and gave up all parental rights, rather than maybe try to be part of her life from a distance or something. I don't know, I only watched like that one season of Teen Mom with Carly. Yeah, I get why he doesn't like Brian, but most of what he's saying is kind of hypocritical, I'd argue. Like, I get Glenn was meant to be their mouthpiece because at the time Brian was starting to get hatred from the fandom, but you couldn't have chosen like literally anybody else but him and Peter to give the speech. Like, Joe or Cleveland, or you know what? My best bet is Jerome. The episode is about him. We know Brian has problems with race, especially in regards to black men. Maybe he tries to show how anti-racist he is by befriending a black man, just as Peter was doing. Only because Brian is insufferable, Jerome notices and could be the one to give the speech. I don't know. I don't know. Then in Quagmire's dad, he slept with his father, which, yes, Ida is a woman, but Quagmire has no problem calling her dad and the like and treating her as such, even though he does respect her gender pronouns, so I'll just go with that. She's Ida, but she's also Quagmire's dad. Okay, she's comfortable with that, I'll be comfortable with that. And while him beating Brian was over the top, since Brian had no clue the pair were related, well, Glenn did not know that, and he doesn't like him already, and he kind of already knows Brian.
I met someone. Oh my god, Glenn, he's amazing. I couldn't be happier.
Really? What's his name? No!
So as far as he knows, he slept with Ida purposefully to hurt him. And also BTW, I know the show probably doesn't mention it. Well, if you get bottom surgery, which I assume Ida did, well, you can't really do anything in terms of that for like months on end, so it's very possible he could have hurt her. Plus, when Brian found out she was trans, his first reaction was to puke and then treat her like an offender. Plus, also, Brian did charge drinks to her room.
And I'm in room 406.
Go on ahead, I'll settle up. Put it on 406.
But I feel like Jerome is the New Black established their rivalry, and then Quagmire's dad cemented it, I hate to argue. So where does Brian the Closer come in? Well, I'd argue that you can't really argue now that Quagmire is wrong to hate Brian when he arguably brings this hatred upon himself. Again, self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the one time Glenn tried to be nice to him and he froze it back in his face. I mean, the cat cafe fiasco was a thing, where Quagmire opens up a cat cafe and Brian hates it for no other reason than Quagmire opened it and the main theme is cats and Brian is a dog.
You can't open this place here. It's right next to my favorite bar.
Go to hell, Brian. You don't own this block. I'm not going anywhere.
Fine. But I'm about to become your worst nightmare.
So he tries to insist it's a health hazard, even if I'd argue that, yeah, Glenn does love cats, but he also has a business to run and the common sense to clean up after them and all that jazz.
Damn it, Brian.
Also, Persian cats? Let's call them what they are. Iranian cats. This entire operation needs to be shut down.
Honestly, though, I don't know how cat cafes work, albeit I think the purpose of many of them is to get the cats adopted by the patrons, so I'm just putting it out there. Like, no wonder he hates him. Glenn had to take all of those cats home, and because they're all shedders, he was drinking and eating their hair. Ew, like, it's bad enough if they shed on your clothes, and I know what I'm talking about. I used to have 2 cats who would shed constantly. One of them died recently. She had a seizure and convulsed, and she never woke up. She was born during Superstorm Sandy. Her name was Mac, and now her brother Cheese is there by himself. And yeah, that legitimately happened. I got their names from that Foster episode. It wasn't me just trying to do this long-running joke. But Brian the Closer, it's way, way worse. Worse than your cats dying? I wouldn't go that far, Catherine, but it is kind of bad. So, let's discuss. Of course, no Family Guy episode can come up with a plot that fits the entirety of the runtime, even with cutaways, which would help break up the pace and give them extra time. I don't know, I heard one person say the actual episode is like 10 minutes, so wow. So first, we get a joke about holes. Oh, I love that book.
Glory will not be seen.
Oh man, that's gonna leave a big hole in their lineup. What's gonna fill the glory hole?
In place of Glory, we will be showing Shaft, starring Richard Roundtree.
I don't know anything about these movies. Actually, you know what? I googled, and fun fact, these are all real movies. Glory is a movie starring Denzel Washington, and it's 122 minutes, while Shaft, which stars Richard Roundtree like they're saying, is 100 minutes. So, biggest jokes aside, you could logistically fit that movie into the slot. Maybe add, like, commercials or something to pad out the runtime. Or do what Nickelodeon does when their movies run a little short and squeeze in an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. How fun would that be? They also mentioned another movie about 2 girls meeting Richard Nixon, which I will call Richard, and unintentionally stumbling on the Watergate scandal, which also is a real movie.
It'd be better to put in that movie about the 2 girls who meet Nixon.
And the movie is 94 minutes long. So, okay, I'll be honest. Good job, Family Guy. I don't know if you really fought through this joke or not, but if you did, this is clever and it works on more than one level. Congrats. You earned my respect. Afterwards, Peter discovers Brian's rope toy, like those chewy rope toys that all dogs have, I think. I don't know, I never had a dog, but really? Brian likes them? Why does he like them, I wonder?
It's awesome. I can suck on it for the flavor. I can thrash it around, pretend it's a snake. Sometimes I just bite it like this. Rope!
Dude, Peter's ass was on it. I don't think you want that flavor. Gross. Wow, Peter's really, like, sat on everything, hasn't he? Like, I mean, Stewie's froggy cloth. Oh my god, that poor kid. Of course, by the laws of Family Guy and also personal envy, Peter wants it. For reasons. Reasons I don't think they ever name, albeit it's probably more so in the sense of, I only want it because you have it. Which leads into the main conflict of Act 1, Peter trying to steal Brian's rope toy. But of course, we also get cutaways, which are arguably the funniest part of the whole episode, if I'm being honest. Which is weird for a middle-of-the-road Family Guy episode, but okay.
On down to Pete's Crab Shack. We got boat parts on the wall, so you know the crab comes from the ocean. Eating next to a porthole, what?
Admittedly, that would be a good episode, I hate to say. Sorry, I like the episodes where Peter runs stuff, like No Meals for Wheels, or that one where he and Lois ran their own cookie business. But yeah, Peter tries to do whatever to get Brian's attention and show him other cooler toys, hoping he'll think they're better than the rope.
No, I don't want to make that trade.
But no offense, Peter, your plan was doomed from the start. Brian likes the rope toy because of how it smells and how chewy it is. Maybe you did have a good strategy using the tennis ball because dogs like to chew on them, but your scent is still on it. Why would he go for it? I think something better would be to take the ball, put it by Brian, be like, you want to get the ball, boy? And then throw it, and then take the rope. But still, because you touched it, in dog terms, it's like you claimed it, and Brian is respecting that. Honestly, Peter, I do think the best strategy, besides what I just mentioned, is just to wait him out. Like, wait for him to go to sleep, and then steal it. Or replace the toy with something else, like maybe a new rope toy. Maybe don't go the golem route, dude. That almost never works unless you're Andy Serkis.
Precious wants a precious rope.
Peter, enough with the rope.
Also wants ice cream.
What did I just say? And don't do a robot reference, Peter, come on.
I am Johnny 5. Need input. Input is ice cream. I need ice cream.
I'm not gonna say anything, goddammit, mostly because I don't get that reference. And mostly because I'm busy working, so I can't have iced cream. Peter's final strategy is to use a gianter rope, tie the chewing rope to the gianter rope, and then drive away, with Brian attached. Brian must choose either his life or his rope. The heck? Dude, it's just a frickin' rope. Why do you care? You already have one, and a better one. You chew on that one. Albeit, I do admire the moxie, Peter. Of course, Brian won't let go, which I was gonna complain about, but considering how the rope is tied to the car, Peter likely isn't going the legal limit, and the fact that Peter ran over a kid and destroyed property, yeah, I kinda get it.
Give me the rope. Nobody has to get hurt, Brian. Only one person has to get hurt, Brian.
Foreshadowing! Wait, is it foreshadowing if it happens like less than a minute later? Anyhow, Peter accidentally, depending on your viewpoint, rams Brian into a fire hydrant. Kind of ironic considering these scenes and dogs and markings, I'd argue, and well, Peter, you kind of made Brian look like...
My teeth! Oh, man, I'm real sorry about your mouth, Brian.
Ew, just ew. No offense, dude, but ew. I think Droopy Dog looks and sounds a lot better than you, sir. Like, I know the focus of the episode is on your teeth, but you also have your own nose to worry about. Yeah, no offense. I get the whole focus is on his teeth considering what happens later, but they never bring up his nose. Like, I feel like that'd also be a big one. Like, maybe Brian gets, like, nose surgery or something. I mean, that was an episode of Aqua Teen, and I think the nose would also be a pressing matter because they say that stuff is painful. And Brian's life keeps getting worse. To add insult to injury, they give him horrible food! People food. As in the standard shallow and pedantic meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and peas. But not like cut up or anything. I mean, I get the mashed potatoes and the peas, but really the meatloaf? Like, keep in mind, this dude doesn't have teeth. How the hell is he supposed to chew? Oh my god, that is like my worst fear. Like, it just goes slime down your throat. And they don't even cut up his food.
Brian, dinner!
Hello, everybody. How was your day? What's for dinner? I'm starving.
You gonna cut up her meat too, Kale? Like, that's a B-word move. Weirdly, I am sympathizing with Ryan here. Why the hell am I? Well, if only because I've been in his position and I've put others in that position. See, my mother had most of her teeth removed without Novocaine when she was pregnant with me because apparently when I was a fetus, I was evil enough to steal her calcium. Guess karma got me when I got braces my senior year of high school, and when you get braces, your teeth feel like they're constantly getting pulled out, so it's hard to chew anything the first 2 weeks. Try being at Perkins seconds and choking on mashed potatoes and chicken fingers because my teeth still weren't used to them. Brian, did you happen to steal your mother's calcium when she was pregnant with you too? Oh, poor biscuit. If that's true, does this mean you got to go to your senior prom twice but only remember the second time? As it turns out, to add insult to injury, Brian is stuck like this indefinitely because the family refuses to fix it. Per Lois.
Brian, we can try to make you feel a little less repulsive, but we're not spending human money on a deformed animal.
Well, what am I supposed to do? But here, you can have this back.
And this was before the newer season, so screw you. Albeit, I still make money by hating on Brian, so haha, Brian, screw you. Guess you could use the proceeds from your book, the whole $5. Even if arguably in this instance, I feel like Peter should, considering how this was all his fault. Because the family won't take care of him, and with nowhere left to go, Brian goes to the clam, likely to also numb the pain, because wow, I can only imagine how much pain he's in currently. And he runs into Quagmire, who oddly enough isn't insulting him nor ignoring him. He's just there being Quagmire, living his best life. He's being the bigger person, and he's not picking up on chicks or anything. I'm very surprised. I don't know what to say about this.
I don't care enough about you to lay into you. But now that you mention it, your face looks like a used condom.
Yeah, I know.
Ha, good one, Glenn. Brian cries in front of Quagmire, and Quagmire, feeling sympathy, actually gives Brian the means to repair his busted up, jacked up face, free of charge.
Here, just take this.
What is this?
That's my dentist. He'll bill me. I've got an account.
You got an account with a dentist?
He sells me nitrous at wholesale. I bang his wife.
Free of charge, remember that.
I won't forget this, Glenn Quagmire.
You better, or I'm gonna get Jerome's mama, and you'll have to go to extra church. No, let me do that again. I'll have to get Jerome's mama, and you'll have to go to extra church. You know what, let me just let his mom do it.
I know I didn't just hear what that man said. Jerome, you gotta go to extra church.
Oh, Mom.
There we go, that's better. But let me just spell out to you, for those who don't get the significance. Brian and Quagmire mutually loathe and hate each other, and Glenn has made no secret about the fact he thinks Brian is a pretentious twerp. But for once, he put his hatred of Brian aside and actually helped him in a meaningful way when he truly needed it, when nobody else was willing to do it, in a way that was probably highly expensive, without asking for anything significant in return. It's just a good gesture to do good. And honestly, Brian didn't do this to manipulate Quagmire. He was just like he had no one else to talk to. When knowing Glenn, he could have just laughed in his face and moved on. Plus, while Glenn is a pilot, and I presume that pays extremely well, again, that's still a lot of money to throw away, because you're not only paying for new teeth, you're also paying for facial reconstruction and all that jazz. I think what motivated Glenn this time around is arguably it wasn't Brian's fault. It was more so Peter's. Yes, Brian shouldn't have bitten down, but arguably Peter should have just accepted he wasn't getting the toy and moved on. And because Peter refused to do the right thing and help the dude he disfigured, it fell on Quagmire. And how will Brian repay this kindness? In a horrible, underhanded way. But first, cutaway.
Very good macaroni and cheese, Mrs. Sullivan.
Thank you, Chris.
That was just awful, Chris.
Terrible.
He is not ready for flashbacks.
No.
Sorry, I like the cutaway. I didn't know how else to shoehorn it in. Soon after, Brian returns home and he looks like he should be running a timeshare with a mystery box or a boat. Look, I know that timeshare dude has a name, but I'm too lazy to Google it. Look, Brian, why don't you just try selling flannel pajamas?
Be honest, huh? You guys hate him.
No, Brian, are you kidding? They're spectacular. You look like a movie star. Yeah, you're like an even more handsome Adam Carolla.
No, I thought Brian's face looked like that on purpose as a prank. Like, that was eventually going to be the reveal. Like, Glenn sensed an opportunity to make fun of him, so he's like, oh, I'll help you by helping myself get a laugh out of this. I mean, come on, how is he going to eat? It's probably like anything, like eating the bottom peanut butter from a jar. Oh, poor Stan Smith. But no, it actually helps Brian. Everybody thinks he's massively attractive, and not in an ironic way. I'm surprised.
Hey, maybe you could help us build the dam, if you think you got the chops for it. It's something to chew on.
We use him just the right amount.
Weirdly, I was gonna write a beaver joke since I forgot about this part, so, that's pretty good moment. I don't know if it was just me being clever or if my subconscious was doing something, so that's cool. Thanks to his newfound teeth, Brian has a newfound sense of confidence. One montage later, and he's polite enough to a couple that they mistake him for a realtor, and they actually buy a house from him.
Okay, but do you think this house will hold its value?
I don't see why not. It's got a nice porch. And the yard's got plenty of room for little ones. Although that's really up to the two of you.
Who cares at this point? It's a freaking house. I mean, did somebody die in it? Is the water, like, rancid? Are the winters hard? Are the summers brutal? Is there a wild man eating clam in the backyard? No. Is it cheap? Can you afford it? Yes. Then freaking buy it. Yeah, maybe realtor plots aren't the best nowadays when basically nobody can afford to buy a house. And even I can't afford to buy a house. And don't say it's because I go to cons, because I couldn't even before then. The realtor who is really selling the house isn't bothered by this and tells Brian he's a natural salesman. He could even sell snake oil and tell people it's the blood of babies.
You are a real estate agent. You just don't know it yet.
What do you mean?
Look at that smile. You're a born salesman. You should come work for me.
Really? You want him to be a realtor? He should work for a car place. I think he'd do a lot better. Brian becomes a realtor without any actual training or proper legal channels. Just saying, even South Park pointed this out. And he turns out to be pretty good at the job, selling houses all over town, and likely also driving up the property values, that damn dirty dog.
I'll take it.
Fudge, I need to make a Bonnie and Joe video like yesterday, since I think I found a way to explain why Bonnie started resenting Joe without it seeming forced, even if I do still dislike it because I did like Bonnie and Joe. But anyways, I do think, in a way, real estate is a good career choice for Brian. He is all about being fake after all, and plus there's lots of attractive women. But with real estate, you also have to be polite to people and charming and pretend to like them and suck up, and I hate to say it, Brian does all of this crap when he isn't trying too hard. Plus, he's clearly got the teeth for it, even if all the other realtors who aren't Brian or John Viner have normal teeth. So yeah, that was weird. But now it's time for Brian to become an Icarus. He has it all, but he just has to get too close. And not a cool, tragic Icarus either. Think Alexander Hamilton in Hamilton when it was easily preventable, but he just had to save his legacy. The realtor dude tells Brian to sell a dump, aka a rundown condo building called Prescott Towers. If he can, he'll make partner, even if he'll probably lose that job for reasons.
All right, sounds good.
It's a plan.
Hey, did I tell you about Kim and marketing?
You mean my wife, Kim?
I'm gonna go sell that condo.
Brian is at a loss at how to sell a condo to somebody, which is a dump. I mean, who's really gonna buy it? Until he goes back to the clam and overhears Quagmire mention he got a fudge load of money via a bonus. Oh god, no. Brian, no.
Anyway, I am flush. For the first time in my life, I got money to burn.
Looks like I found my sucker.
No, I don't think I have to tell you why this is bad, but it is my job, so I do. See, Glenn willingly was kind to Brian for probably the only time in his life, no strings attached, like he had nothing to gain from this, and Brian is going to repay this massive kindness by stealing from him, lying to him, and likely also saddling him with a ton of debt in the process. Why? Because Brian is Brian. Now, I could get it if Glenn gave him a shoddy face job on purpose, or if Glenn was rubbing it in his face like, ha, you look like a beaver. Or maybe if the teeth thing didn't happen and Brian wanted to reward him for all those times he was acting like a jerk to him, but no! Do you not see what this man did? I'm not saying you have to kiss his ass, but seriously. And this is why I can safely say that Glenn has a right to hate on Brian, because Brian arguably brings it upon himself. Like Catfight, nothing happened, but Brian just hated him that much. Like in Jerome is the New Black, nothing really happened, but Brian had to keep making it worse because he couldn't leave well enough alone. Teeks for 2, we could have just left well enough alone, especially considering how Quagmire outright said it wasn't a class on finding your true love, it was a class on being a playboy. And if Brian was such an intellectual, he should have picked up on that. Joking aside. But Brian doesn't care because he's selfish, and because if he's partner, I guess something cool will happen, I don't know. And because anybody who isn't Stewie is just a tool to him. He goes down to the gym to cozy up to Glenn and trick him.
Nice job. Let's get you a rub down.
Oh my god, I just got this joke. Now, have you ever heard about the idea of EFOS PAFOS logos, aka the salesman's best tactic? Well, it seems for once, Brian did something intellectual. He establishes EFOS by being Quagmire's friend and lying and saying that by being a realtor, he has insider knowledge about a property that's going to increase in value. He establishes logos by giving him the money he owes him for fixing up his face, showing that he logically could be trusted because he made enough money as a realtor shelter thanks to Glenn, and he establishes payphones by cozying up to him and pretending to be his friend, which I'd argue is even worse. He's sticking him with a dump he knows is a dump, if only to make money, and he's going to deceive Glenn. And again, unlike the normal Quagmire versus Brian episodes, there's no blood on either side, although there is blood on the saddle. So yeah, Brian is just deceiving him, somebody who did him a favor. Now, it is very possible that the value of the property could increase, but that would take as much money as it would probably cost to buy, since you'd likely have to renovate the whole thing or tear it down and start over. Regardless, even if it did, which is a very big if, it would take years to fix or build, and money and years somebody like Glenn doesn't have. This was back when he was still 61. Remember, a bonus is a one-time thing of money. Like, seriously, Glenn could have used it on anything else.
I mean, I didn't think I'd ever be friends with Iced Tea. What are you thinking about?
Thinking about putting black guy hair in a ponytail, because the times change.
But are you friends with Water Tea? No. Then your credibility is terrible, dude. Brian shows Glenn and the guys the property he wants to buy, called Prescott Towers, and a film advertising it. But he neglects to mention or show its current state.
Nation, Prescott Towers. Quahog's only luxury residence catering exclusively to the affluent.
Affluent means rich.
Which I gotta say, the place does look kind of nice, and I kinda wanna know what made it go down under so badly. Like, was there like parasites or something? Since they don't have the time, I think this would have been great to examine. Of course, Quagmire isn't a sucker. If anything, he's a licker. So he wants to see the place first. Too bad he might be a sucker in this case.
I wanted to let you know early because there's another buyer who's about to snap it up.
It's not Lou Sheridan, is it?
Well, I'm not really permitted to say. Do you like Lou Sheridan?
I hate Lou Sheridan.
It's Lou Sheridan.
Dude, that's like the oldest trick in the book, and you're just leading him on, as in putting words into his mouth and making this a whole lot easier for him. Sorry, I have been on your side most of this video, but as a critic, I gotta be honest, Glenn. Quagmire accepts, and he goes down to the place and discovers, yep, it's run down. It makes the Arcadian from How I Met Your Mother look like the Four Seasons.
Well, maybe it's still got a nice ocean view.
The harbor is poisoned. Damn it, Brian screwed me!
Again, I argue this place is an opportunity as a fixer-upper. Or maybe, like, tear it down and put something else there that you can make money off of, like a parking lot maybe a hotel. There was a whole episode where Stewie and Brian did try to flip a house, but while that kind of worked in Peter's Daughter until Stewie blew it up, I don't think it would work here just on virtue of size. Like, Quagmire is going to be saddled with so much debt, and considering how run down it is, there's little chance of him actually being able to sell it to somebody else. The value will likely go down, or he's going to be stuck with it for years having to pay it off. He's essentially trapped thanks to Brian, and honestly thanks to himself, I hate to argue, but thanks to Brian mostly. And yes, he does owe a bit of responsibility for not vetting the place first, but the main reason he didn't was because he trusted Brian. So, wow, cool Brian, you took advantage of his trust and spit back in his face. You screwed Quagmire, and not in the cool way. Joe reads the contract and discovers there is a way out. I mean, couldn't he just sue Brian? He has 72 hours to rescind the purchase. Oh, so like escrow? I don't know how real estate works. Quagmire goes down to the real estate office to talk to him about getting out of his contract, but Brian is gone. And like a coward, he's hiding until the 72 hours are up.
They're gone.
Well, for the next 72 hours, I'm going to be harder to find than a nice cat.
Coward. He hides in the air duct, he reenacts E.T. with Stewie's stuffed animals, and later he goes to a motel like the plebeian he is.
Welcome home.
Ah, hey there, buddy. There you are. I've been looking all over for you.
That's why you've been hiding from me in this motel?
That's what you get, Brian. And Quagmire does call him out on his BS. I love him! Brian seems to have an epiphany and realizes Glenn is 100% correct.
I'm a jerk. I'm a selfish and pretentious jerk. And you're the only guy in town who's ever called me out on my crap.
I mean, you said it, not me. Wait a minute, Glenn. He's stalling for time. Don't forget why you're here. Do not forget why you're here.
And that is 72 hours. Enjoy your crap hole.
See, what did I just say? No wonder nobody likes you. No wonder I don't like you. You know what? Enjoy meatloaf. Glenn, do the honors.
You son of a...
Awesome sauce, Glenn. So why is this bad? Although while I do approve of this, I don't think SOB is an insult considering how Brian literally is one. Although, I guess maybe Glenn did also waste his money by doing that. Like the whole, punch thing, but So Brian is back to looking ew and the episode just ends. Justice dealt. Also, he got fired, so yay, justice dealt. So yeah, Glenn 100% has a right to hate Brian now, and Brian can't argue he doesn't have a role to play. TY for getting me to check out this episode, guys. It was terrible. Anyhow, bye.